Long ago, there was a small village far away from cities and markets. This village was surrounded by dry, empty land. There were no rivers, no lakes, and no streams. The people of this village lived a very hard life because they did not have enough water. Every day, they prayed for rain, but the sky remained clear and the land stayed cracked and thirsty. The only hope for the people was one ancient well in the middle of the village. The well was very old and very deep. Nobody knew who had built it or how long it had been there, but it gave water to the whole village. Children played around the well, women filled their pots from it, and men used the water for their animals and crops. Without this well, life in the village was impossible. But this well was strange. Sometimes it gave water in plenty, and sometimes it became weak and slow. The villagers noticed that every few years, the water in the well would suddenly go down and almost dry up. People became worried and afraid whenever this happened. They believed the well was not ordinary, that it had a secret hidden inside. Even though the people feared it, they could not live without it. Every family depended on this deep well. Without rivers or lakes nearby, without rain to bless the land, the villagers' survival was tied only to that single source. For them, the well was both a blessing and a mystery. The old elders often sat near the well and whispered stories about its darkness. They said the well demanded something in return for the water it gave. But most villagers ignored those words, thinking they were just tales of the old. Still, in their hearts, everyone felt uneasy whenever they looked into the endless darkness of the well. The villagers soon realized that the well was not like any normal well. It carried something strange, something dark. Every few years, when the people most needed water, the well would suddenly dry up. No matter how many buckets they dropped inside, they pulled up nothing but dust and empty ropes. This was the moment when fear spread through the whole village. Children cried, mothers worried for their families, and men stood helpless. They had no rivers, no lakes, no rain. Without the well, there was no water, and without water, there was no life. The elders of the village knew the truth. They whispered among themselves, but the younger ones pressed them to speak clearly. At last, one of the oldest men revealed the secret. The well was cursed. It was not only a source of water, it was alive with a dark hunger. He explained that the well demanded something terrible. To bring back the water, the villagers had to sacrifice a young girl. Only then would the water return, rising fast and full, enough for everyone to drink and live. The people gasped in shock, but deep inside, they knew it was true. Old memories came back. Long ago, other girls had disappeared into the well, and soon after, the water had returned. The curse was cruel, but the villagers were trapped. Either they gave the well what it wanted, or their children would die of thirst. Every time the well went dry, the same fear returned. Who would be the chosen one this time? Whose family would lose their daughter? The well's silence at night became more frightening than wild animals or storms. The villagers prayed for a miracle, but the curse never changed. The well always wanted its price. And the people, no matter how much they hated it, always obeyed. As the years passed, the younger villagers began to question why the well was so powerful. They wanted to know the truth. One evening, the elders gathered the people in the village square and finally spoke about the dark secret. The oldest woman, her voice shaking, told the tale. Many generations ago, the land had been even drier. The people prayed day and night for water, but nothing came. Desperate, they went to a wandering priest who promised them a solution. He said there was a spirit deep beneath the ground, a spirit who could give them endless water. But the spirit was not kind. It demanded a life in return. The villagers, blinded by their thirst, agreed. A young girl was chosen, taken to the edge of the empty hole, and pushed into the darkness. The ground shook, the hole filled with water, and from that day, the well never went dry, unless the spirit became thirsty again. The people gasped as they listened to the story. Their well, the source of life, was also a prison for something terrible. It was not just stone and water, it was a doorway to the spirit's hunger. Every time the well dried up, it meant the spirit wanted another sacrifice. And always, it demanded a young girl, pure and innocent, to satisfy its thirst. The villagers felt both fear and guilt. They hated the secret, but they could not ignore it. Without the well, they would die. With the well, they had to live with blood on their hands. The dark secret of the well was now known to all. No child in the village could sleep peacefully, especially the young girls. Each one feared she might be the next chosen sacrifice. And deep inside the well, the spirit waited, patient and hungry, for the moment it would be fed again. The day finally came when the well once again went dry. At first, the villagers thought it was only for a short while, but as days passed, no water came out. Buckets returned empty, ropes scraped against dry stone, and the sound of thirst spread across the village. The elders looked at each other with heavy hearts. They knew what must be done. The dark secret could no longer be hidden. The spirit in the well was thirsty again. The villagers gathered in silence. Every face was pale with fear. Mothers held their daughters tightly, praying they would not be chosen. But the elders said there was no choice. One girl must be sacrificed, or the whole village would die without water. After a long and painful discussion, the name was called. A young girl, only 16, was chosen. Her name echoed across the silent crowd like a curse. Her mother fell to the ground, crying, while her father stood frozen, unable to speak. The girl trembled as she was brought forward. She begged, she cried, but her words could not change the fate written for her. The villagers avoided her eyes, ashamed of what they were about to do. Yet none of them stepped forward to protect her. Their thirst was stronger than their courage. For 3 days, the girl was kept inside her home, her family broken with grief. On the 4th night, when the moon was hidden behind clouds, the villagers came. Torches burned, drums echoed slowly, and the chosen girl was led to the well. Her voice shook as she screamed for mercy. But the crowd stood still. No one dared to stop the ritual. The chosen one was ready. The well waited. And the spirit deep inside prepared to drink again. The night of the sacrifice arrived. The sky was dark and heavy clouds covered the moon. The whole village gathered around the ancient well, their faces lit only by flickering torches. A heavy silence filled the air, broken only by the sound of the chosen girl's sobs. Her hands were tied with a thin rope, and 2 men walked beside her, guiding her toward the well. She struggled, her voice echoing in the night as she cried for her mother. But the crowd stood frozen, unable to move, unable to help. The elders began chanting the old words, prayers passed down from generation to generation. These words were meant to please the spirit that lived inside the well. The sound of the chants grew louder, mixing with the crackling of the torches and the cold wind that blew across the village. The girl fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. She begged for another way, she pleaded for mercy. But everyone turned their faces away. No one wanted to see her pain, yet no one dared to stop what had to be done. The drums beat faster. The chants grew stronger. And then, with one final cry, the girl was pushed into the darkness of the well. Her scream echoed deep inside the hollow walls, fading into silence. For a long moment, nothing happened. The villagers stood still, their hearts racing. Then, from the depths, came a strange rumble. The ground shook slightly, and the sound of rushing water rose from below. The villagers gasped, their fear mixing with relief. The sacrifice had been accepted. But as they looked into the well, some swore they heard another sound. A whisper, soft but chilling, carried by the wind. A voice from below. The spirit had fed once more. The moment after the sacrifice was filled with silence. The villagers stood around the well, their faces pale, their hearts heavy with fear and guilt. For a few breaths, nothing happened. The night felt endless. Only the sound of the wind moved through the dry village. Then, suddenly, the sound of rushing water echoed from deep within the well. The rope shook, the stones trembled, and the dry air turned cool. One by one, the villagers stepped closer, their eyes wide with hope. Water began to rise. First, just a trickle, then a steady stream, and soon the well was overflowing. Buckets were lowered quickly, pulled up heavy and full, spilling cool water on the dusty ground. Children cheered, mothers wept with relief, and men shouted with joy. Life had returned to the village. The people filled their pots, their jars, and their hands, drinking greedily. After days of thirst, the taste of water was like a blessing. But in their hearts, they knew the truth: it had come at a terrible cost. Some villagers tried to smile, pretending all was well again. But others could not forget the girl's last scream. Her voice still echoed in their ears as they swallowed the very water bought by her sacrifice. The elders declared the ritual complete. The spirit had been satisfied, and the well would provide water for years to come. Yet, they warned the people never to forget the price. Every drop they drank carried the memory of the life taken. As the crowd began to leave, a strange uneasiness spread. Some swore they heard faint whispers rising from the well, hidden under the sound of flowing water. The words were unclear, but the tone was dark and cold, as if the spirit below was laughing. The well was full again. The village was saved. But deep inside, everyone knew it was not the end. That night, after the water returned, the villagers celebrated. Pots were filled, animals drank freely, and children splashed in the fresh water as if all the pain had been forgotten. Smiles returned to tired faces, and laughter filled the village again. But not everyone could forget. Some mothers held their daughters tightly, afraid of the future. Some fathers sat quietly, their eyes fixed on the well, as if they expected something more to happen. When the crowd left and the torches burned low, only a few villagers stayed near the well. The water shimmered under the faint moonlight, calm and clear. It looked like an ordinary well again, harmless and peaceful. But the silence around it felt too heavy. Then, as the night grew colder, a sound rose from the darkness. At first, it was faint, like the wind moving through stone. Slowly, it became clearer, a whisper. "Soon, I will be thirsty again." The villagers froze. Their bodies stiffened, their eyes wide with terror. The voice was soft, but filled with power, echoing from the very depths of the earth. It was not the voice of a human. It was older, darker, and hungrier. Those who heard it ran from the well, their hearts pounding. They told the others what they had heard, but many refused to believe. Some said it was only fear playing tricks. Others said the spirit was warning them of the future. But deep inside, everyone knew the truth. The well would never be satisfied. Its hunger was endless, and it would always demand more. That night, no child slept peacefully. Every girl wondered if she would be the next. Every parent prayed it would not be their daughter. The water flowed again, but the curse remained. And in the heart of the village, the ancient well waited, silent, patient, and forever thirsty. In a dry village with no rivers or lakes, only one ancient well gave water, but its secret was darker than death itself. The water returned, but the whispers below warned the well would always be thirsty again. Would you dare to drink from it? If you enjoyed this horror story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more terrifying tales every day.